This is Concepts, where two pretentious sirs quibble over ideas that explain today's world. Phil Shea and Steve Rose. My name is Phil Shea. I am writing for makeaskillcheck.com, and you can find more writing by me at hittingeject.com. Steve?
My name is Steve Rose, and you can find more about me at steverosephd.com, where I write about mental health and addiction.
Welcome back. Two things to say. First, I sound like I'm recording in a tunnel in this entire episode, pretty much, including number two, my aside, where I correct something that I misstated. So have fun with that. Hopefully you can bear with it. Steve sounds as silky smooth as always, and I will do my best to do better in the future. So thanks for bearing with us, and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Concepts Podcast.
Welcome.
Delayed. This is going to be like the stupidest running joke we have, basically, of you just not knowing whether you're going to say. We even talked about this, just to be clear. We talked about whether he was going to say it or not. And that pause was despite him saying he's going to say it.
I don't believe there was any pause.
Okay, sure. We'll see.
They will be the judge of
today,
this.
What are we talking about today, Steve?
Well, we're talking about the concept of Ikigai, something that I've wanted to talk about for a long time now, and you've been rather lukewarm about the idea.
Yep.
and just kind of like, yeah, maybe we'll do it someday.
Yeah, long-time listeners, back in like episode 1 to 3, somewhere in that range, we did bring it up, and I did talk about how I didn't really want to talk about it.
I don't even know why. It's actually one of my favorite concepts ever, and you've been very lukewarm. So we'll see today if that has changed or will change.
All right. So introduce the concept to us, Steve. What is it you think Ikigai is?
Well, I love how you phrase the question.
Okay, so I'm gonna preface this. This might be back to maybe closer to our roots of the first episode, which we deviated from immediately, but of possibly being something of a debate one way or the other, or trying to argue a point. I might be a little more adversarial than usual for Steve's thing. But we'll see, because I don't know what he prepared and he doesn't know what I prepared.
Yes.
Again, I think I told him just a minute ago that I have 2.5 pages of notes.
Well, you have more notes than me.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I'm pretty sure Steve probably doesn't have like any. So
I have very few. So
yes,
Phil thinks this is going to be adversarial. I don't think so. I think he's underestimating my level of understanding on this concept, and I think
your level of rigor. I'm challenging your academic rigor.
We will see. So let's define it. Let's get into it.
Please do.
In simple terms, it's a Japanese concept. Ikigai, and it comes from I guess there's no direct way to translate this, because if you translate one word from a language to a different language, it kind of loses its context and loses its direct meaning. So
sometimes
I guess the closest thing that we can say is a reason for living, a reason for being. A word I like to use is purpose. It's related to intrinsic motivation.
Like the French raison d'être.
Yeah, raison d'être.
Raison d'être.
D'être. If you want to be a pretentious version of this, you can use that. So it's life worth. What makes life worth living? There's no direct correlation between English words and this. It's just a compilation. And as we talked about before with social construction, language is very tricky in this sense. Is you can't necessarily directly understand the context of a different language unless you've kind of lived it and know the nuances of the term. Yeah.
To be clear, when we talked about social construction, it wasn't a dedicated episode. It was just a major facet of chiplessness, which was 2 episodes ago.
Yes, chiplessness, the made-up word for lack of chips, which is a made-up emotion word, and it really shows us how all of these concepts are in some way products of social reality. And this one in particular is very unique to the Japanese concept, but it has been westernized. If you do a quick search on this, you'll find a Venn diagram. I always call it Venn diagram. And the common kind of four-part Western interpretation of this is it's a combination of four factors: doing what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you're good at. And so if you have all of those four factors, they say that that's Ikigai. But this is a highly westernized butchering of the concept.
Capitalism ingrained as well.
Yes.
You have to be paid for it.
Yeah. That has a lot of Western ideas. And then the fact that it's put into a Venn diagram, Westerns are very good at that as well. It doesn't really represent what it actually means in the Japanese concept. They almost wouldn't even recognize the concept if they looked at this diagram. And so if you bring it back to more of the roots of how it's used, it's a common word apparently in Japan. It's an everyday type of word, and it relates more to a felt sense, an experience. It's an experiential concept. It's not something that's abstract. It's almost like the idea of passion. You feel passion, but it's not exactly passion. It's kind of related to that too, I would say. But it's this felt sense that you have a reason for living and motivation to go on, in a sense.
So would you say that your passion for whiskey would be part of it? Could that be an Ikigai?
I would say so. But if you go by the Western Venn diagram, it would be...
Then definitely not.
Yes, definitely not, because you'd have to have all these criteria of what you love, what the world needs, and can you get paid for it? Okay, I'm not getting paid for it. I'm not a connoisseur, and it doesn't fit.
Also, what the world needs is a funny thing to me, because it's like, what do you mean what the world needs? It's like, if I write a novel and I get paid for it, I love it, I'm good at it. But the world, does it really need another novel? Does it need my novel? What if it's just Pulp Fiction?
Yeah, and I think that's relating to kind of a demand, but I guess the word getting paid for relates to that too. So this interpretation of the concept makes it very narrow. It makes it very elusive and very put off into the future of some goal that maybe you can get it someday. But the real meaning of this is an everyday, simple concept that anyone can have at any point, in simple things and simple objects, and it doesn't have to be this kind of big criteria, this Americanized version. Is that the controversy you were going to hit me over the head with, thinking I didn't?
Yeah, I was gonna try to say, like, we need to make sure that we're not perpetuating this kind of life coach that has been pushed in the West, taking a concept from the East and being like, look, it's so profound, but it's actually just a repackaging of like Aristotle's Ethics, I think, wasn't that? This just seems very similar to that. I was trying to think of what it was called, but it's where your talents and the world's needs cross, there lies your vocation, was the quote I found from Aristotle.
Oh, that's a nice quote.
I think you and I have spoken a bit about that.
I do like the quote. Yeah, I like the quote. I like the Venn diagram. I just don't think it's an accurate representation of how the concept's most often used in Japan, specifically.
Yeah, and it could be, I mean, it's not used at all like that in Japan from what I understand.
No.
Like, it seemed to me, Ken Mogi is the guy that he's one of the two books. I think there were only two books that were written by actual Japanese people in the English language, or at least have been translated to the English language. And I listened to an interview with him just before we called, and I was just trying to like cram as much of this in. And what it made me think of was the French reason to be, raison d'être, the Danish hygge and mindfulness in combination. It's something that you enjoy life for. You have these small pleasures, which is like, hygge is a concept of coziness, finding coziness in everyday life and enjoying that. Like basically being in a wood room or wood chalet, let's say, or cottage, which I'm kind of sitting in right now, with warm lighting, maybe a fire, a nice blanket, and a cup of tea. That's the hygge life, kind of. And then mindfulness is just like being present and enjoying that. Did you end up coming across Ken Mogi's 5 pillars of Ikigai?
No, but I've come across a couple other definitions from actual Japanese researchers.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that version that you found.
Okay, no more combativeness. Now it's collaboration. Ah, damn. I was hoping to smack it down.
You thought I was just going to
pull out the Venn diagram.
I knew you were thinking that. You kept being very like elusively like, I think we're going to be combative in this one. And
that's how I speak.
And then I was like, we'll see about that. I've been doing a lot of listening to different podcasts on this. There's actually a podcast called the Ikigai podcast, where this guy, he dedicates every episode to the concept of Ikigai. So see that podcast for the actual expertise. We're just two pretentious sirs talking about ideas here.
Yeah, as we say in the intro every episode. But That guy, though, he had Ken Mogi on, the author, and they spoke about it. And Ken said that he thought the podcast host has a good concept of it. The 5 pillars that Ken Mogi put forward in his book, The Little Book of Ikigai, were, and I think when listening to this, we should see how they overlap with the Venn diagram, which are, just to remind you, what you are good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you're paid for. So keep those in mind. The 5 pillars that he puts forward are starting small, releasing yourself. I actually couldn't find a definition of what that meant exactly. Harmony and sustainability, the joy of little things, and being in the here and now. So to me, like, starting small, I guess, is, he kind of said that the Japanese people don't generally need a giant, grandiose framework to move forward. They kind of just start at the beginning and start just like chipping away at something, which is kind of what's in line with ACT therapy, right? Acceptance and commitment.
Yeah.
Not aiming to be the very best, but just starting where you can and with what you have, to a degree.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lack of perfectionism in a sense, taking small committed steps in the present moment with a values orientation is also another part of the concept. I didn't quite hear it so much in that definition, but I know it is part of that.
Maybe releasing yourself has to do with values. Maybe I don't really know what releasing yourself means. Maybe it means, especially in a Japanese context where they're very constrained socially, I think it might be to do with that, like being your authentic self, perhaps.
So it does relate to values, because the values is about releasing yourself from societal expectations and standards that are too rigid and you don't actually believe. So there might be an overlap.
Yeah, perhaps. One of the things he talked about as an example was someone asked him what Ikigai was, and he sprinted away shouting "we" and enjoying himself like a child. And so to him, he thought that everyone should have contact with their inner child. So I think maybe he means like, one of the quotes actually that seems to succinctly talk about it is, he said, in Japan, we also have people who adjust to their social roles, and their social roles become their lives. It's an adaptation, but I think it's also a tragic loss of opportunities, end quote. So he's just talking about basically how people kind of become the role they're playing, kind of like the as we've talked about many times, the dramaturgy by Goffman, where they're just marrying the idea of being like a doctor or a lawyer, and they have to be a serious adult, because if you're not serious, then no one will take you seriously. But that's kind of a silly thing. We're living up to other people's expectations in that way and not our own, right?
You have to be a serious adult. Yeah. So that role playing dramaturgy is kind of like that constriction in societal expectations. But there's also a healthy type of role playing that you can engage in, because it gives you a sense of belonging and purpose. It's the connection between what you can offer and I guess what the world needs. And I guess it relates to that Venn diagram in that sense. But I've seen in other definitions of the concept too that there's kind of a family system, community kind of orientation of the concept that's not an unhealthy, constricted version of that.
What do you think about the harmony and sustainability? That one is actually about social contexts, it turns out.
Harmony, sustainability. Yeah. See, that gets the very big picture in my mind. It doesn't relate so much to the felt sense as the concept often is. It's very kind of a big picture, environmental type of view.
I mean, sustainability as we understand it when we hear that word now, because it's mostly used in an environmental context. He was talking about, apparently it's about how all social exchanges should be sustainable.
Oh.
Which I guess, in my interpretation of what he's saying, it means that we should not necessarily, even if we have a strong opinion, we shouldn't, if it's going to damage the relationship to say it, then you may want to hold your tongue. If it can't be practical, but this is a relationship you value, or even maybe if it's just one that you can't get rid of, like say a boss, then you would still hold your tongue in that way, which some people actually fault the Japanese for, but he actually claims that it's the secret to Japanese success.
Oh, I like that in the social sense of the word, not necessarily the ecological sense. And I also thought of another version of that word, which is the self-care version of sustainable. Sustainability could be also an individual thing. Is what you're doing sustainable? Are you engaging in enough self-care that your daily routines are sustainable?
Yeah, you're not going to burn out.
You're burning yourself out, and then you needed like a 2-week vacation on a beach where you drown yourself with alcohol. So I think the word sustainability, the fact that you opened it up to that, it reminded me of this other version. So that's fitting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how with some words, you can call it priming, or one that comes to mind, the concept is functional fixedness, which is where we see something for what we initially assume it is, and then we cannot break it out of that mold. So for example, I think it was an experiment where, I can't remember what it was. I think it was a hammer or a screwdriver, and they had to the solution was to tie that to a rope to swing it as a momentum, just as a weight. But because people saw it as a hammer or a screwdriver, they would often not come to that conclusion because they're just thinking that they needed to hit or screw something with these tools, but they could just be used as a weight. And I think that happens with words. Like in this sustainability, we hear that and we think environmental, but it has a lot of different contexts, right? It just means to be able to continue going at whatever pace it's at.
And even like the word sustain on a piano, there's a pedal called the sustain pedal. And what does it do?
Yeah.
You press the keys and it continues them ringing rather than silencing them. So it's kind of a continuity is what the word refers to. But we can look at it.
You just looked it up, didn't you?
No. I'm not even looking it up.
Okay.
Continuity on various levels: ecological, interpersonal, social, and individual. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not looking it up. I'm like just thinking about.
Yeah, you're conceptualizing it, but I think we dug a bit deep into that one. So
are we changing this episode to the word sustainability? Are we looking at that concept now?
No, I mean we kind of did, but a little too closely perhaps. But
a little too closely.
The next one is the joy of little things. That's where Higa comes in because it's enjoying like the small pleasures, the creature comforts kind of.
That's a big theme that came up when I was looking up the actual Japanese use as well. It's like the joy of like the cup of coffee in the morning, like the little things. Yeah,
he literally lists some things as Ikigai, which you just listed one. I made a list here because I thought it was funny because what people think it is like this grandiose purpose. You need to do all these things overlapping and then your life is complete. But then like what? I don't really understand. Like, are you supposed to, is that your career? How long should you be doing that? Is it like a temporary thing? Is that the only way to be happy? What if you retire? Can you no longer be happy because you're not getting paid anymore?
Right. The Western definition of the concept, yes, is very limited to that.
It's very capitalistic in that you must be making money.
Yeah.
I want to talk at some point about the origins of the Venn diagram, but first I'll list what he said that made me laugh because I'm like, compared to what we conceive it as or what kind of self-help gurus push it as, it's not that at all. So what he listed was eating chocolate, drinking coffee, meeting people, writing a blog, answering life counseling questions. And he said that every day is made up of 100 small connected Ikigai throughout the day. So just the small things, living in the now, enjoying what you're doing, don't feeling like everything is a chore, you know?
I can very, very much relate to this aspect of the concept, this small enjoyments.
Well, you especially, you're all about that.
Yeah. Like little things like driving. Like if I have the car that I enjoy and appreciate the quality of, like, it's just a 5-minute drive and I can appreciate it, take it in, you know, just those little things, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's ideally how you would be. Cause I think what we're sold a lot of time in marketing and stuff like that is that you need to have X to be happy. Like you're not happy. Oh, that sucks. It must be because of this thing. But it's like marketing does things to make us unhappy so that it could sell us the cure to a disease we don't have. Right.
Yeah.
And actually, when we're talking about diseases, it makes me think of, I need to actually fact check this, but this is the story I was told. It was in one of my university classes, so I'm inclined to believe it. It also seems very, very intuitive for what we understand capitalism to behave like. So for cold sores, right? What is a cold sore?
A pain on your lip.
Okay, fine. It's herpes. It's oral herpes, basically. Okay. And at the time before, they used to see them as cold sores because they thought it was like a cold, just something you would get once in a while. Not a big deal. Nobody really cared. It would come and go. It's a little inconvenient, a little bit. Generally, it's just like a canker sore or something. It's just something that comes and goes.
Yeah.
And that was how it was viewed before. It wasn't a big deal. Now, how is herpes viewed? It's viewed as like this incurable, terrible disease. It's awful.
Yeah.
I don't, just as a disclaimer, I don't have herpes, but I just think that this particular story is pretty disturbing because the reason this shifted was because we actually developed a treatment for herpes. And you would think, but by having a treatment for herpes, so like basically whenever you feel like a recurrence coming around, apparently, or an outbreak, that's it. You're supposed to take these pills and it'll like nix it. It'll stop it very quickly. And so in order to sell this, because people didn't care that much about it at the time until this product was developed. And then because of this product, they started doing this wide shaming campaign for if you have this, you're a disgusting monster and you need to just, get rid of that.
Yeah.
And so it made a desire for people who originally were seen as okay and normal to think they were now diseased and bad, and so they could just push these pills more. So it's kind of like that, right? Like we feel like we need to have these giant, grandiose things to fix our problems, but it's actually not fixed by those things at all. Hello, this is me stepping in from the future. So, this is actually a conspiracy theory that turns out to be false. I thought I should check into it, and it's a good thing I did because it's wrong. So yeah, that's obviously my bad. So fun facts. The CDC actually recommends against getting screened and diagnosed for herpes because it's actually pretty much harmless and its stigma is worse than the disease itself. It doesn't really seem to matter. It's not actually considered a venereal disease because it doesn't actually require sexual contact, even though it can. It's more just through touch. 4 out of 5 people who have it don't even know they have it, which is probably for the best. And if we want to look at the actual culprit for the hysteria around herpes, it's from the media at the time, frankly. And people like Billy Graham. Billy Graham gloated saying, quote, "We have the pill, we have conquered VD with penicillin, but then along comes herpes simplex 2. Nature itself flashes back when we go against God," end quote. And that's obviously a bunch of garbage. So at the time, if you want to know, the prevalence of herpes between 1970 and 1985 rose from 13.6% to 15.7%. Which is just a paltry 2.1% increase of a disease, again, that doesn't really do anything. In 1983, there was actually a made-for-TV movie called Intimate Agony, where everyone on Paradise Island contracts it, and it basically was reefer madness for herpes, but it was successful this time. Reefer madness, for those of you who don't know, is a ridiculous propaganda film by the U.S. government to demonize marijuana. Finally, the drug companies didn't play up fear at the time. There was actually a lot of different things making people scared of this, including the Rolling Stones, Time, New York Times, Phil Donahue, Oprah, 60 Minutes, all these kind of ran huge scares about that. And the ads that came out were not specifically naming the drug that they were selling. And they had stuff like a man on a beach with a woman saying the hardest thing this guy had ever had to do in his life was tell his girlfriend about his herpes diagnosis. So they're more sympathetic and empathetic to the situation and offered help. And this was after things had already kind of died down. So it's actually, again, sorry, my bad, it's false. All right, back to the show.
Yeah, it's catastrophizing. It puts you into that. I've literally had calls where I've talked to people who think their life's ending because of this diagnosis particularly. So what you're saying is actually real. I hear it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They have dating sites specifically for people with, well, I don't know about specifically herpes, but I know they have them for anybody with a STI that's not curable. They have dating sites specifically for them because people don't want to date them. They will not go near them, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that's how demonized it is.
I've heard this before. Like, my life's over. Everything's done. It's like I'm permanently damaged. It's my fault. And like I'm ashamed. And like, yeah, literally this exact thing you're saying is real. But it is a form of catastrophizing. And it's not just, some people with anxiety disorders have a tendency to do that more.
Yep.
But it's also a capitalistic marketing ploy that created demand for a big cure.
Yeah, I mean, it's exploiting a natural psychological tendency we have. By the way,
right.
Catastrophizing is a cognitive distortion. I think that's episode 6 or 7. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
But I did want to point out that this is actually very typical of like westernizing things. I couldn't find the example. There was apparently something I came across before, but I think it was a Korean way to be kind of thing, like a way to live your life in a happy way. And I think it might have been like a diet perhaps. And so they tried to export it to the US and it failed because it was only like 1 or 2, maybe 3 concepts. And so they ended up making it like a 12-step thing, like a really big, elaborate thing that was not even close to the original concept really anymore. But then it succeeded because America seems to think, or at least the West relatively, seems to think that it needs to be a complicated thing. Because like the answer to happiness in life can't simply be just enjoying the little things and just relaxing a bit. It must be something more than that because I can do that. Anybody can do that. That's not it. So it's kind of a funny thing.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that the concept developed into exactly that. The Venn diagram makes it into this big grandiose kind of westernized thing, which is actually counter to the spirit of the concept itself, which is more simplicity, felt experience on a day-to-day level, not this grand goal that someday maybe I'll have all of these factors.
Yeah.
It's quite ambiguous, the concept itself too, which is counter to Western notions of everything must be clearly defined.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's a comfort with ambiguity there.
But I mean, I don't know if we can say all of Western because like Higa is a Scandinavian concept, or no, sorry. Danish. I don't know if they're counted as Scandinavia, but
Let's go with Americanized. I don't know.
yeah, okay, that works. I think, though, that the reason it is Americanized in that way was kind of hinted at in a book I read called Fantasyland by Kurt Anderson.
Okay.
And in that book, he talked about how America's foundation, or at least maybe a lot of North America, it's the New World. It was a place that was sold as a lot of promises. You can go and be anything. You can go a gold rush, all these things. And so it attracted two particular types of people, according to him, or three, I guess. One was religious zealots, because they wanted to go and spread the word, I guess. One was rubes, like people who were taken in by this fantasy imaginary image of this rustic living in the West, in the New World. So they were people that believed the propaganda that this was like the land of plenty and it would be super easy and you can be your own king of your own land. And then because there were so many rubes going, there was also a lot of charlatans going, trying to take advantage of those rubes. And so I think if we view the founding of North America, maybe America specifically, it actually explains a lot of like the skepticism towards simple answers and how like they think that they want to get their money's worth because they don't know if they can trust the seller kind of thing. That's, I guess it kind of ties a little bit. Again, we're not American and I don't mean to insult any Americans. This book was actually very interesting. So take that as you will, I guess.
Yeah. It's a kind of a founding spirit of America, the culture, the kind of Protestant ethic is related that. So we're kind of getting away from the concept again, as per usual, but very related.
So uncommon.
Did you want to continue your pillars?
No, I was basically done the pillars. There was the joy of little things and then being in the here and now. The joy of little things we talked about. The final one, I guess, is being in the here and now. That's essentially mindfulness, presence, paying attention to what you're doing, not being lost in thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I actually did some research on actual Japanese definitions in the research, and I found a diagnostic tool. Oh. It's called the Ikigai 9. It was created by a team of researchers. And have you come across this at all?
I did not, no.
Okay. You underestimated me.
Ooh. Yeah, your last minute brushing up. I didn't expect
the Ikigai 9. So maybe I'll list the definition in this research, these 9 factors that they came up with, and then we can see how it maybe relates to the ones that you found. So here they are. I believe that I have some impact on someone. My life is mentally rich and fulfilled. I am interested in many things. I feel I am contributing to someone or the society. I would like to develop myself. I often feel I am happy. I think my existence is needed by someone or something. I would like to learn something new or start something. I have room in my mind. There it is. What do you think?
That sounds, I think, a lot more psychologically well-rounded. It seems like it actually would be a much better way to approach life, which is, like you have impact on somebody or something. Like, I guess that's why people find having pets to be very valuable. And there was research, I think, on people in old folks' homes or retirement homes, whatever you want to call them, where if they had even just a plant to take care of, just to water that, they had a much greater chance of living longer. They wouldn't, if they didn't have any control over anything and everything was just taken care of, then they felt purposeless, I guess, and they were more likely to succumb to illness or outright die. So I think that makes sense. My life is mentally rich and fulfilled. That, I think, is really related to need for cognition. Some people I don't think feel the need to have a mentally stimulating life necessarily. I'm interested in many things. Is curiosity required to be happy? I mean, like a lot of these things, they help, but I don't know that they're necessary.
Did you look it up yourself right now?
No, I typed them as you were talking so that I could.
Oh, wow. That was fast. You and your fast typing.
I told you I could type fast, and that's actually why I was good at doing IELTS English training, because I would get them to answer a question, have to speak for 2 minutes, and I would type their answer and correct their grammar as I went.
Wow, you were good.
So it was literally my job at one point. Not quite a stenographer, but I do what I can. Let's see. I feel I am contributing to some other society, develop myself. Yeah, I mean, all these things are good. I think that we should actually do a lot of these things. Most of them seem like they can fit most people, not all of them. But yeah, what do they use these things for? So if you say yes to them, then you have Ikigai. Like, what is this tool for?
You have higher Ikigai if you say yes to more of these things. I think the idea is. One thing that stood out in this definition is so many of the factors are connected to a social connection. Like, I'm contributing to society. I'm needed by someone or something.
Yeah. What does room in my mind mean? Do you have any inkling on that? Like, your mind doesn't feel cluttered and busy?
I would assume it's something like that, like a simplicity of presence.
I think it's the lack of overthinking and anxiety, perhaps. Because
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
yeah, anxiety is like constantly ruminating on things.
So it's mindful rather than mindful. Like if your mind is full, you don't have room in your mind. And if you're mindful, you kind of put things in their place, and then there's no clutter around. You're not having to overthink. What is this thing doing landing around here? Oh, you're tripping on everything. So I guess mindfulness is more than just presence.
I'm curious what you think about that, though, because that seems like a luxury of being successful. Because like I feel my mind is constantly racing about stuff. Like I want to think about things I want to think about, and I find it mentally stimulating. But at the same time, I have to think about like, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to live? What is going on here? Like if I had a more stable income, this is why in the past episode when I talked about like the working schmucks, I consider myself as one of them. I'm still trying to figure out like how I can be free of those things because I don't have a stable living situation. So it seems like it could be a luxury. So what do you think about that? Can you still be free of mind and more mindful and present in what you're doing without like being lost in thought? Like when you have all these things you have to work through and consider?
Yeah, I think it's partly a luxury, but not necessarily, because you could see a lot of successful people with a lot more mental clutter than they had when they were of more modest means, perhaps, because they just kind of get into this internalized capitalism, which we talked about in a different...
Gotta achieve, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily correlate. But I can see what you're referring to, as in, I gotta like, where's my next paycheck coming from? Like literally is something you're probably thinking about.
Yep.
And it doesn't help though to have a very cluttered mind about it all. You can have a lot of mental activity about like, okay, where's it coming from? I got a plan, I got a thing, and you got to be vigilant. And you can have kind of a eustress, they call it. We can talk about that in a different episode. It's a form of stress that is...
Yeah, I wanted you to do that one. Yeah.
Eustress is like stress, but a positive stress that motivates you to act. And so I think...
Yeah, the same U as in euphoria.
Euphoria, yeah.
Like positive.
There's a benefit into this high level of thinking, but overthinking by definition is not just a lot of thinking. It's over the top in some way. It's becoming unproductive, actually counterproductive to you getting the next paycheck. So if you're sitting there ruminating on something, meaning repetitively thinking about the same thing over and over and just like pacing the floor, you're actually taking time away that could be dedicated toward actual work or planning. So that's kind of the distinction I would make. What do you think?
Yeah, I suppose. I guess this is me and like mindfulness more generally, because I'm thinking like, if you're mindful, then you're just experiencing what is around you. And I guess you could argue that your subconscious, knowing that you have these issues, will be working on them regardless, and randomly something will come up. But I'm always thinking, I have monkey mind out the wazoo.
Yeah.
Just constantly thinking about this problem or that problem, or trying to work out whether this makes sense or not. And it's helpful a lot of the time. I don't feel like I'm like stressed out, but I guess I could be overwhelmed sometimes. I don't know. I guess it depends, because you're kind of making a false dichotomy a little bit of like being completely mindful or completely like overthinking. Being mindful is still probably superior because you are more present and more able to enjoy your existence. But I don't really know how like passively thinking about solutions plays into this or not. Anyway, did you want to talk about the origin of the diagram? Or did you want to keep talking about Ikigai 9 actually? Are you done with that?
Ikigai 9, yeah. So I like it. The key part I noticed was there's a lot of social connection pieces there, that you're contributing to a cause, a group, you're needed.
Yeah.
And this kind of need to be needed is something that I've actually written about. So there's an article I've written. It's one of the more popular articles.
Yeah.
Type in Google the need to be needed. It should probably come up.
SteveRosePhD.com.
Yes. Yeah. But people can really relate to this.
Yeah.
Like I wrote this title back in the day, just kind of, I don't know, it just popped into my head. And I was like, oh, I'll just write some random article on it real quick. And it actually became one of the most popular ones because people seem to be searching for this apparently. And it's this fundamental need. And I think a fundamental part of this concept.
What's actually, before we move off, talking about that, the social aspects, it's funny because like writing on the D&D website, you have to actually talk about philosophy at times, because in D&D there's alignments. So good, neutral, evil, lawful, neutral, chaotic. It's like a 3x3 grid. I think it's too cartoonish, honestly, because the way you're kind of conceiving evil in that context is like, I like to hurt people. But I think where I ended up landing, because we had to talk about, there's apparently people asking questions about how to run evil campaigns, because almost all games, most games are good players. Because the motivation is usually like, this poor family scraped together what little money they have to like get you adventurers to save their daughter who's been kidnapped by goblins. And if you're bad, then you're just kind of like, and that's not enough money. Go away. So we had to define what evil meant in that post that I just put up this week. And I kind of came to the conclusion that evil is doing whatever you want without regard for how it affects anybody else. That seems to be the simplest form I can think of, where you will go to reach your own ends, regardless of how it hurts other people. And sometimes your ends could be to hurt other people. But I found that thinking about this, you can have your goal of hurting other people, but still be morally good. Because then you have to go into like the S&M community where like you're a sadist, you like hurting people, you got pleasure from doing that, and without regard for other people, then you're evil because you're just hurting people without their consent. But if you want to be moral about that end, you would then have to be be a sadist with a masochist who enjoys it as well and is consenting to being abused in this way. The way I'm tying this in is that we're talking about how being social, pro-social, is what makes people more happy. Because evil or selfishness tends to not make people happy. It ends up being like this black hole where you feel like you have to keep performing more and more, right?
Right. Okay. I see how you connected that now. Like, where are we in this detour? Okay. Context matters. Yeah. Got it. Moral philosophy there. And then tying it back to, okay, pro-socialness. Okay. This need to be connected. I got it.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, like, what is evil? Evil is the lack of being socially connected, basically, of not caring about anything but your own desires.
And I guess you would distinguish that from social isolation, where somebody is isolated beyond their control.
Yeah, I mean, that's also like a form of torture in many respects, because
It's a form of evil, yeah.
I don't know if I'd call it evil. I mean, isolating somebody without their consent, yeah, well, that would be evil. But somebody choosing to be isolated, I think, is it's void of morality. I don't think it matters unless you're arguing that everyone should be contributing to the common good. If they're not doing bad things to other people, they're not affecting anybody else, and they're living a sustainable life outside of society, then I don't see any issue.
And you know what? I always have this question of, what about hermits, in a sense of people that maybe wouldn't check the boxes in this definition of having an impact on someone, not contributing to society, not necessarily feeling needed by someone or something.
Yeah.
What if you are just happy living in your log cabin out in the wilderness and enjoying the simple ikigai of the cup of coffee and your view of the lake and all of that?
What do you mean, what if? I mean, I'm sure some people are fine with that. I personally couldn't do it. I can't really fathom what that would be like, because you'd just be kind of bored. But
right. Well, but you'd have very high levels of certain aspects of the definition, like mentally rich and fulfilled, and perhaps you're interested in many things. You're doing a lot of reading, and you feel happy every day and enjoying the simple things in that context. But this other aspects of the definition, the social one, would be perhaps more irrelevant if you were to apply it to someone in that context.
But you're also, I guess, ignoring that they could have a relationship with nature or the creatures around them. That could be their kind of social scene, the actual relationship to nature, making sure they're not damaging that.
Yes.
Helping to build biodiversity around them by proliferating specific plants. So like they could still be doing something good. Like the relationship doesn't have to be with humans, right?
Yes. Right. So again, broadening the definition of connection beyond the social into the ecological. Okay. Yeah. And then there's the spiritual you can bring in and replace it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. I was going to think about them too, because like some people go to caves and just meditate for a decade.
Right. So changing that, contributing to society or social connection to these other versions of connection makes sense.
That's why I think purpose, what was it? You said connection was like the third. We talked about this a couple episodes ago with self-determination theory, I think, where you're saying it was mastery, autonomy, and you said connection, right?
Yep. Or relatedness is another way to say it.
Yeah.
And those are the three factors of intrinsic motivation in our episode on self-determination theory.
That's why I like purpose more, because it's broader, because you can have a purpose of your purpose is just to live out by a lake, whittling all day.
Well, and the word relatedness in that context, again, doesn't have to be social relatedness, as you said. It could be nature relatedness. So that whittling, I like that idea. There's something so simple and wholesome about whittling.
I think purpose can be anything. Knowledge acquisition is learning more, which doesn't have to do with relatedness at all. But I guess this is a disagreement that you and I think have never really squared away, but that's fine for us to focus on those differently. So you want to talk about the origin of the diagram that if you type in Ikigai into Google will immediately pop up and everyone will talk about this friggin' diagram?
Immediately. Yeah. Yes. Well, the false origin is that it comes from Okinawa and it's a secret to Japanese longevity and all the rest of it. That would be the false origin. Would you want to share the real origin?
Real origin of what? Ikigai or of the diagram?
The diagram.
Okay, so first, Ikigai was mentioned in a talk about centenarians, people who lived over 100 years old, from, as you said, Okinawa. So where it actually came from was a guy named Mark Wynn. In a 2014 blog post, published this Venn diagram. The funny thing about this is that he basically talks about it later in a video, saying how he actually took this Venn diagram and only added one word to it, which is the word Ikigai. Everything else is actually made up by a Spanish astrologer named, I'm going to butcher his name, Zuzunaga Andres. It's just like, it's so stupid how it ended up getting away from him. Because like he says, this is Mark Wynn again, quote, in 2014, I wrote a blog post on the subject of Ikigai. In that blog post, I merged two concepts to create something new. Essentially, I merged a Venn diagram on purpose with Dan Buettner's Ikigai concept in relation to living to be more than 100. The sum total of my effort was that I changed one word on a diagram and shared a quote-unquote new meme with the world, end quote. It's just so ridiculous how this picked up. It's not even related to the original concept.
Right. It was just like some guys theorizing that, hey, here's one way to look at it. And then it kind of got traction because I guess Westerners love Venn diagrams.
Yeah, I guess we really do.
We really do.
This overlaps with that. Amazing.
Yes. What is a PowerPoint without a Venn diagram?
It's just a point then. There's no power.
There's no power to be made.
Yeah, it's not a PowerPoint anymore.
No.
So actually, one guy I watched, he was criticizing the whole Ikigai thing, and that's where I got much of my research. Luckily, it was very densely compacted. He was saying that this is falling victim to the passion fallacy, and he doesn't like the Ikigai as Western people have conceptualized it, because he's saying that you basically can't be a happy person if you're not being paid for it. You can't be happy if this or that. If you identify with this too much, then basically your happiness will maybe be like, well, I'm not getting paid, or like, oh, I'm like, the world doesn't actually need this. And so you might actually stop the thing that is giving you joy because you're not living up to this particular thing. I think that's going a bit far. But he calls it the passion fallacy, where like, unless you have like found your true one passion in life, as is constantly pushed on us, then your life is pointless. What are you doing? Go find that passion. Stop living with your family and working a day job. Go find your passion. You need to do that, or else your life was purposeless. And that's bunkum.
That is bunkum. Yes, it's really this whole idea of you must find your passion, which actually makes it more difficult to find your passion. And I know this was perpetuated by Steve Jobs and the whole kind of commencement speech that he gave, and it became very popular.
I think it's always like a survivorship bias after the fact, kind of being like, I was definitely passionate about this.
Because he makes it look at like it's like you got to go on a treasure hunt to find your passion, and it's out there somewhere in the world. It's elusive, and you just have to look hard enough, and it'll be there under the haystack or something.
So good they can't ignore you.
Yeah. So
Cal Newport.
That is a book that argues exactly this, that it counters this idea and says passion is actually found in the building of competence in a particular area in a more explorative sense, impromptu, discovery-oriented. And once you get so good at something, you become more passionate about it. And then I guess it relates to people being more likely to hire you for that. So the title of the book, So Good They Can't Ignore You. And I guess it relates to the Venn diagram too.
Yeah, so, you actually wrote a post about this before where you were saying that
I did.
Passion, the original use of the term is about like Passion of the Christ. It's about suffering is it for a purpose, or is it just...
Well, the actual etymology of passion does come from suffering. And when we talk about the movie Passion of the Christ, it's not like Jesus like dancing around
having a great time. Yeah. He's really passionate about God. That's not what the story's about.
He doesn't have his vision board and, go to rave concerts. I don't know.
Yeah, you're just picturing hippies then, are you?
I was thinking of Burning Man or something like that.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before.
Still fits.
So Passion of the Christ was not Burning Man. It was quite painful. And so the root word passion comes from, I guess, a sort of suffering. And this relates to Viktor Frankl's idea of what purpose actually is, which is part of logotherapy. And it's suffering with meaning is purpose. Suffering without meaning is despair. And so he turned his whole situation. He was in many Nazi concentration camps.
Yeah. And he had his dissertation destroyed too. This is a lot of stuff. His only copy of his.
He had his psychological manuscript.
Yeah.
And it was taken away and he was subjected to a bunch of torture. What got him through was this meaning aspect. So the suffering plus the meaning, it really created this passion, which relates very much to the Ikigai concept and how it facilitates psychological resilience, mental resilience, but also physical resilience. And there's actually some research on how this has allowed people to survive after different diagnoses and actually in older age, and some dementia research on this as well. I don't know if you stumbled upon that.
No, I didn't. I guess I briefly touched on that earlier from the studies with elderly people and plants. But one thing I did come across that I'm not sure if you came across. So we're both like, I got this thing you didn't come across.
Well, I got this and you don't.
Did you come across Ikigai psychology?
What is that?
I guess you kind of did with the Ikigai 9. It's there's a woman called Miyako Kamiya. She's Japanese. She's said to be the mother of Ikigai psychology, where she talks about, I have a quote from her here. I'm sure she says lots more than this. I didn't have enough time to do research because this is like the last half hour. I was like, I got to find something more interesting here. So it was, quote, "It seems the word Ikigai exists only in the Japanese language. The fact that this word exists should indicate the goal to live its meaning and value within the daily life of the Japanese soul has been problematized. According to the dictionary, Ikigai means power necessary for one to live in this world, happiness to be alive, benefit, effectiveness," end quote. And what she basically points out is that, as you were kind of saying, that the Japanese language is ambiguous. I think that's true for a lot of, I think they're called ideographic languages or ones with characters. So like I think I said this to you before to a couple of people when I was trying to remember the word for toes. I mistranslated it to people as foot fingers because I know the word for finger, which would be more commonly used. We don't talk about toes very frequently, right? So like I think the word for finger, the noun, and the word for point, the verb, I think are both very similar words. Probably not the characters, but the sound. And I remember thinking that the word for finger is probably more accurately depicted as the word for like digits, like my foot digits and my hand digits. They're just the things that come off of them. That's actually pretty accurate, but like it's always reminding me that every character or every word in at least Chinese and probably Japanese as well, and many cultures, is that they're kind of clouds of meaning. A particular character in Chinese is a cloud of meaning. It's like, instead of being finger, which it is finger, it could just be, it's also toes. So it could just be digits or like small extremities or something like that. So like you kind of get a feel for these words as you go, which is why translation could be so difficult at times.
There is an ambiguity to the language itself and the writing even, and the characters. And this is why this whole episode is really about defining this undefinable concept, which is very much experiential.
Yeah.
And related to that, I do have another definition by one of the top Japanese researchers in this particular area, Professor Hasanegwa. And he creates another diagram, which we can link as well. And it's called the constituent elements of Ikigai. And he says there's the feelings associated with it are, let me just list them here: self-realization and willingness, sense of fulfillment in everyday life, motivation to live, sense of existence, sense of control. And then there's an etc. after it. But, so there's a kind of a vagueness even in the diagram. So it's a cloud of meaning of sorts, as you said before with
yeah, it seems to be very personalized. It may not be drinking coffee because maybe you hate coffee, but it could be drinking tea or whatever, going for a short walk, like whatever it is that you enjoy, being present for that, enjoying the small things in life, taking breaks. It was also pointed out by like Ken Mogi about how like a salaryman in Japan, they work exceptionally hard and to the detriment of their lives, I would argue, because there's like the whole concept of like work death where you like die at your desk.
We'll have to do that concept at some point. Yeah. Karoshi?
I don't feel like either of us knows enough about the Japanese culture or context to talk about it, but we could try.
We're doing it right now. So why not?
Sort of. Yeah, I guess that's true. He was talking about how they find pleasure in the small grasped moments that they can, like the found time, as it's called, where you just have downtime that you're waiting for something to happen. Like you're on the subway waiting to get to work, so you're playing a game or listening to music or whatever. And I do actually kind of relate with that. I remember when I was working at this call center between Australia and China, back at one of my lower points, I would get like a 15 or like a 10-minute break, and it just feels like so pointless. Like right now, if I gave you 10 minutes to do something, it would just feel so short, and it is. But because you're so constrained most of the time, getting that 10 minutes of like just being able to browse on your phone, it just felt so much more pleasurable than it would be right now if I were to just stop this and pick up my phone, because like my time is more free. So maybe it's highlighted because of that life. Maybe that's why it kind of emerged, because they're so hardworking. I don't know.
That relates very much to this idea that you've noticed your Ikigai the most in times of suffering or hardship, going back to that idea of passion and suffering, that it really stands out in those moments.
I think it's like contrast, right? Because like everything psychological for people is about contrast. If I say like if you take a very important test and I say you got 787 points, is that good? Is that bad? Like, where does that land? What's the top number? What's the average? Whenever we got like exams back, students would always ask, what's the average? Because they wanted to know how they did in context. And that's why I think we're always about relations between things. So if your life is generally very bad, and then occasionally you get like this respite or nice break that's unexpected, then it's that much more pleasurable. Like that story, I think it's a Chinese proverb, maybe Japanese, where there's this man being chased by a tiger, and he's chased off of a cliff, and he falls and he grabs a root and is able to hang on just there. At the top, there's a tiger. At the bottom, there's yet another tiger that's taking notice of him. No matter what happens, he's going to die. He notices on the branch that he's hanging on to, there's a strawberry. And so he plucks the strawberry and eats it. And it was the most delicious thing he'd ever tasted.
Oh, wow.
Because of the suffering and the struggle, basically.
Okay. That is a nice metaphor for Ikigai.
I don't know if that is related, I guess, but I've said pretty much everything I have to say about this. Do you have anything else you want to go over?
Not in particular, no.
Okay. Then just to refresh, my take on the whole concept is, well, one, the Western concept is dumb and very rampant with internalized capitalism. My take of what it actually means is a combination of like the French reason to be, the Danish hygge, like enjoyment of coziness and creature comforts and small pleasures, and mindfulness. All those three things kind of jam together, just focusing on the little things, enjoying life, seeing what impact you can have no matter how small on anything around you, and trying to be pro-social.
Yeah.
Is that a good summary, would you say?
I would say it's a very good summary, as per usual, as you always do. And emphasizing the pro-social element is something I tend to do, but not as in like a gift to charity, but relates that back to...
We'll also do that.
Yeah, well, you could. But cherishing the value of your close interpersonal relations. That, again, is something that has been reinforced by 70 plus years of research by Harvard in what's called the Harvard Grant Study. We could link that. It's one of the longest running longitudinal studies in existence, really. And they followed these people from...
Yeah, I have heard of this, actually, yeah.
Second World War?
Yeah. It's since then, I believe. And they've, I think, moved on to their kids, even some of them.
Yeah, and they found that in all of this research, that one of the biggest factors that contributes to, I guess, not only just health, but happiness and well-being is the quality of one's close interpersonal relations.
Yes.
That relates to this. It's a simplicity, in a sense, that connectedness. There's a kind of a purpose in that as well.
Yeah. And I think I just wanted to wrap up and emphasize, you're emphasizing the social, I'm emphasizing, I guess, the small a little bit too. I just wanted to end with a quote by Ken Mogi. Japanese people don't need grandiose frameworks to move forward in life. They just take little steps, end quote.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right.
Love it.
Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we see you again next time. Share with your friends, please. And that's pretty much how our marketing strategy is that. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
That's bunkum.
That is bunkum.